Okay, where do I start? I met my husband when he was 18 and I was 17. He asked me out on a date, and I turned him down a couple times. Then I finally said yes, but I said he had to come to my church because my church was my entire life. I was there every time the doors were open. So he started coming to church with me, and after about a month, he said, do you believe Jesus Christ is your Savior? And I said, no. And he said, do you believe in God? So he's trying to figure out where I'm coming from. So I've been in this church all my life. My grandparents started this church. So we talked, and the more he kept asking me questions, the angrier I got. And finally he said, well, Jesus Christ is your Savior. That's what a Christian is. And I said, oh no, I'm a Christian and I've never been taught that. So it took years. I mean, we dated for a whole year. We got engaged. His mother was sad because he was going to marry me unyoked. I didn't know what that meant. I thought we were yoked just fine. But we got married anyway, and they asked us to teach the youth of the church. So I didn't understand, but he was going to the Baptist church down the street, getting their literature and bringing it back and teaching the kids in our church this literature. That's how I started learning about Jesus, because I was in the back of the classroom listening to him teach these students. And it took about 3 years for me to see that I had been raised wrong, that I was in a cult. He never said I was stupid or I was in a cult or put me down. He just showed me through the words of Jesus what the truth was. That was rough. So it took another probably 4 years after that before I quit going to church altogether, because I was so confused. I didn't have a clue. I didn't understand all the Jesus stuff, and I didn't understand how I was wrong all those years. You know, you don't ever expect your parents to raise you in something that is so important that is so wrong. So it took probably 8 years before I started going to church, a real church, a Baptist church, a Christian church. And I remember going forward, it was revival, and I was hanging on to the back of the pew for all I was worth. I was not going to go down that aisle and make a fool of myself. And the second day of revival, I said, I gotta go. I think I flew. I don't think my feet even touched the ground. And I got down there, it was a big revival, hundreds of people. And he had a microphone, and he said, you have to speak. You know, tell us your name. And I all the way down there was saying, oh God, don't make me speak in that microphone. He handed me the microphone just to say my name. And I took that microphone and talked for like 15 minutes about Jesus. He said, would you like to get baptized? And I said, yeah. And there was a voice on the other side of the preacher. And he said, I'm her husband, and I'd like to get baptized with her. I was like, what? I looked. There enough. There was my husband. So we got baptized together 10 years after we were married. Awesome. Within a year, he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and was paralyzed from the neck down. And that started a whole nother adventure. And I'm thinking, where is this God? Where is this Jesus that's supposed to be so great? I'm finally learned who you were, and now I feel like you turned your back on me. I mean, I felt that way, not in my heart, but in my mind. And it took years of him going through all of the stuff that goes with MS and the treatments and the steroids and just learning how to talk again, being blind, learning how to walk, just everything. And of course we have 3 children now, so the kids are 2, 4, and 6 when my husband is diagnosed. So now we're 16, 14, and 12, and I said, I can't take it anymore. I was working 18 hours a day, 6 days a week, trying to pay for all of his medical because we didn't have insurance. The prescriptions were $1,800 a month out of pocket. It was just crazy. And I tried to call my mother one day, and I couldn't remember her phone number. So I went to look her up in the speed dial, or in the Rolodex, and I couldn't remember her name. So when I said to my husband, what is my mother's name? He said, Mom. And I said, no, I want to call her, and I can't remember her phone number. So he gave me her phone number, and I called her, and she said, hello. And I said, you're not going to believe this. I'm laughing. It's so funny. I couldn't remember your name. I couldn't remember your phone number. And she got real quiet. She said, honey, you really do need some help. You really do. And I'm like, I'm fine. She said, no, you need to talk to somebody. So I went to several counselors who weren't Christian, because I didn't know which one to go to. And they kept telling me, put him in a home, forget about him, go on with my life. And that wasn't an option. That wasn't what I signed up for. So finally I found a Christian counselor and made an appointment with her, talked to her for an hour on the phone, made an appointment with her. And I get there and she's disabled. What? What kind of God is this that I'm trying to get over working with a disabled person, and he sends me to a disabled person? And I looked at her and I said, you gotta be kidding me. And that's what I said to her, what kind of God would send me to you? She said, what kind of God would not send you to me? How could I help you any more than knowing what you're going through? I said, but you're the disabled person. I'm the not. She said, oh, I think you are. So that started our conversation, and I met with her for 6 months. And she, through love and time and prayer and patience, reminded me who this Jesus was that I fell in love with so many years ago. And through all of that, God has been there so strong. Our children were all kind of going crazy because they weren't being parented correctly. And we ended up moving to a small town in North Florida and starting over as a family and going to church and practicing what it means to be a Christian in our household. Today, my oldest son is a pastor, and he has 2 children. My daughter is an awesome Christian mom. Wonderful. I have one more son and his wife that aren't quite there yet, but they're getting there. God has never been more faithful than when you can't see him. And I think that's, if I had to say anything, that would be it, is when you can't see him is when he's there the strongest. As I look back over we've been married 40 years. I look back over the last 30 years of him being sick. All the times that I was at my weakest and I felt like I couldn't do one more thing, that's when he was there the strongest and sent people to me that I look back now and say they were Christians and I didn't even realize it. When he was at his worst physically, he was also at his worst mentally, which makes sense because when you're dealing with a disease, it wears you down, it wears you out. He would get so tired of being sick and tired. My day would start like at 6 in the morning, and I would get him up and get him bathed and give him breakfast, then get the kids up and get them to school, and then my first crew would come in, and I would give him his lunch because he stayed in the bedroom. His eyes were very sensitive to light, and he couldn't walk, and his speech was very minimal. So I got him everything he needed for the day, and I would set him up, and I would leave. We would go and do construction cleaning and come back. And then I would make supper and make sure the kids would sit down doing their homework, and then I would take a different crew and we'd go clean offices at night so that we could pay for the medical bills because we didn't have insurance. So it was very expensive. The medicine was $1,800 a month, and it seemed like every time I turned around they were giving him another medicine to counteract the effects of a different medicine. So it was just like a vicious circle. And the hardest one was the steroids because they kept putting him on high doses of steroids to counteract the MS. There's a word for it. I always said MS attacks. Anyway, so at his worst, he couldn't speak, he couldn't walk, he could only see out of one eye, and it was really blurry. After years of this, that's when I finally just said, I can't do this anymore. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I just felt like I couldn't do this anymore. And I was trying to make payroll that night, and I was sitting in the office at 3 in the morning trying to make payroll for the staff, and I didn't have enough money to make the payroll, and I just sunk. I just sat on the floor, and I said, I don't know what to do, God. I don't even know if you're real. I don't know what's real. I don't know what to count on anymore. And I cried and I hadn't cried in years. I thought I had to be tough all the time because he needed me to be tough, and the kids needed me to be tough, and I worked in construction, so I was tough. And then I just started crying. I thought my tear ducts had dried up and went away, and I cried and cried. I finally caught my breath, and I said, if you're really here, God, I need you. I need to know you're here. And then a voice said, whatever happens, glorify it in my name. And it was kind of quiet. I thought somebody was outside my window. I jumped out of the chair, turned off the light, and I looked, and of course there was nobody there, and I sat with my head against the back of the wall. And I said, that's not good enough. I don't know what that means. Is he going to die because I wanted him to die, because he was so miserable. He wanted to die. And then I felt bad because I wanted him to die. I mean, it was just a horrible thing. And the voice said, whatever happens, glorify it in my name. And there was like an emphasis on the word happens. And I said, you have to tell me, what are you going to do? And then the voice again said, whatever happens, glorify it in my name. This peace came over me. I've never felt it ever before, and I haven't felt it since, but it flooded my entire being. And it was like, okay, it doesn't matter what you choose to do. I'm going to be good. We're going to be okay. And I ran up and I woke up my husband at like 3:30 in the morning. And I'm like, God just spoke to me, and I don't know what's going to happen, but either you're going to die and go to heaven or he's going to heal you, but it's going to be good either way. I don't know what it's going to be.